All right, so the story we're getting into today, it's a heavy one. It comes from a Reddit confession, a really dark, cautionary tale from a guy named Glenn. And it's all about how young love, jealousy, and one single angry click on the dark web can spiral into an absolute unimaginable nightmare. You know, the original source for this story came with a very direct warning, and I think it's only right that I pass it along to you. This gets graphic, and it gets really disturbing. So seriously, if that's not for you, this is probably your moment to bow out. For everyone else, let's get into it. So our story kicks off in a place we can all probably picture. High school. And it centers on two people, Glenn and Issa, who were caught up in one of those romances that was just incredibly intense and, as it turns out, incredibly possessive. To everybody else, they looked like the perfect high school couple. You know the type. Glenn and Issa were totally inseparable, famous around school, the kind of couple that acts like it's them against the whole world. But underneath all that, their love had this really dark edge. It was obsessive. Like neither of them could handle the other one even talking to someone of the opposite sex. For Glenn, no, that wasn't a red flag. To him, it was proof. He was 100% convinced they were going to be together forever. But as we all know, forever is a pretty long time, especially when you're in high school. The relationship hits a wall, and for Glenn, the end of his love story becomes the start of a deep, dark dive into revenge. The whole thing came crashing down when Issa cheated on him. She found someone new, started that relationship, and then ended things with Glenn. But here's the key thing. For her, the breakup had kind of already happened emotionally, long before she said the words. She was ready to move on. Glenn, on the other hand, he was completely blindsided, just left standing there in the ruins of what he thought was this perfect, lifelong thing. And after the breakup, their worlds could not have been more different. Issa was happy. She felt free. She was just moving on with her life. But Glenn, he was completely stuck. He was furious. He was heartbroken. And that bruised ego, that pain, it quickly soured into something way, way uglier. This burning, all-consuming obsession with getting revenge. And these are his own words from his confession. He couldn't eat. He couldn't sleep. The only thing he could think about was making Issa feel the same amount of pain he was in. He kept picturing her, happy with this new guy, laughing at him, and it just fueled his rage. He decided that she was going to cry, and this time, he'd be the one laughing. So, what does a heartbroken, vengeful teenager with some pretty solid knowledge of the internet's darkest corners actually do? Well, Glenn turned to the dark web, searching for a tool to make his twisted revenge fantasy a reality. And he found it. He stumbled onto this site with a weirdly sinister, almost childish name, the Naughty List. The first thing he saw was a simple question. Has anyone ever hurt you? To someone in Glenn's state of mind, it was like a siren's call. The site promised it could help him get even. The whole process was just chillingly methodical. It was like a twisted online order form for suffering. First, he confirmed that yes, someone had hurt him. Then, when it asked if he wanted to cause equal or more hurt, he chose more. He selected punishment from a listed options. And then, from a menu of punishments, he chose the most ominous-sounding one, the mystery box. To finish, he uploaded all of Issa's information, her full name, her social media accounts, even photos of her. But before he could submit, the site gave him one last chance to back out, a final and frankly super creepy warning. It even used this weird metaphor, saying Santa was going to deliver the punishment, and that Santa can never go back. This was it. This was his last chance to stop. He didn't even hesitate. He just clicked sure. And the second he did, the website just vanished. Poof, gone, like it was never there. But Glenn wasn't scared. He was thrilled. He felt this wicked sense of excitement, completely convinced that he had won. He just sat there in his room, laughing to himself, just waiting for Issa's pain to begin. For weeks, absolutely nothing happened. Glenn's anger started to fade. He began to move on, thinking that the website was just some dumb, elaborate prank. He even ended up changing schools. But, as we're about to see, actions on the dark web have a way of crawling into the real world. So let's just lay out the timeline here. 2 months have passed since he clicked that button. A month ago, Issa was officially reported as a missing person. And then, one morning, Glenn gets a knock on his door. It's the police. The police start asking him questions. When was the last time he saw Isa? And just hearing her name, it was like a jolt of ice water. The memory of that form, the punishment, the mystery box, it all came flooding back in an instant. They told him the story. A month ago, she met up with some friends at a cafe, said goodbye, and then she just never made it home. Then they told him they had a lead. Not a person, but an object. A single box. It had been found in an abandoned hospital on the outskirts of town, and there was a horrific smell coming from it. Glenn actually went to the crime scene, and when the police opened that box, the sight made two of the officers physically sick. It was Isa, and what had been done to her it's almost beyond words. Her fingernails were torn off, her fingers shattered, her teeth had been pulled out and hammered into her forehead. 80% of her skin was just gone. And where her eyes should have been, there were two small, rolled-up pieces of paper. The first one read, "You should have been nicer to your boyfriend." And the second note, well, it delivered the final, sickening proof, tying this whole nightmare directly back to that one single, vengeful click. The person or people who left that box were never found. The case went cold. But for Glenn, this discovery was just the beginning of a different kind of sentence. Not one handed down by a judge, but one from his own conscience. And it really forces you to ask a terrifying question. When an act of revenge is literally just a few clicks away, what is the real cost? For Glenn, it wasn't years in a prison cell. It's a lifetime trapped in a prison of his own guilt. In his confession, he says he's just a hollow shell of a person now. That laugh he so desperately wanted to have at Isa's pain, it's gone forever. He says he can barely even talk to people anymore. He can't feel joy. He is just stuck with the knowledge of what he did, what his anger unleashed on the person he claimed he once loved. And this is the whole point of him sharing his story. It's a warning. It's a plea from a man living in a personal hell of his own creation, hoping, begging that a story can stop anyone else out there who's heartbroken and angry from confusing revenge with justice and from making a mistake that can never, ever be taken back.